You wake up to a quiet morning, sunlight just beginning to filter through the curtains. You shuffle into the kitchen, reaching for that familiar cup, the one you've trusted for years to start your day. The steam curls upward, the rich aroma fills the air, and with the first sip, you feel comforted, safe. But what if that comfort is hiding a slow, silent danger? What if the very drink you count on to wake you up is quietly damaging the most precious part of you, your memory? As a brain doctor, I've treated too many seniors whose memory decline began not with a sudden accident or disease, but with the daily choices they thought were harmless. One patient, a sharp-minded woman in her early 60s, came to me in tears after she started forgetting where she parked her car, missing appointments, and stumbling over names she'd known for decades. She never smoked, rarely drank alcohol, and exercised daily. Yet every morning, without fail, she sipped the same breakfast drink that was accelerating her brain's aging. Here's what makes this so dangerous. Past the age of 60, your brain's blood vessels naturally stiffen, and its ability to repair damaged neurons slows down. That means anything that spikes inflammation, disrupts blood sugar, or constricts tiny vessels in your brain can have a much greater impact than it did when you were younger. Unfortunately, many common breakfast drinks, from certain coffees and teas to sweetened juices and energy blends, contain exactly the compounds that set these processes in motion. It's not just about caffeine. High glycemic sweeteners hidden in flavored lattes, powdered creamers, or all-natural juices can cause rapid glucose spikes, which are followed by sudden crashes. Over time, these fluctuations starve your brain cells of stable energy, while repeated inflammation chips away at the hippocampus, the very part of your brain responsible for forming and storing memories. And because seniors often metabolize these substances more slowly, the harmful effects can last hours longer than in younger adults. Imagine two parallel timelines. On one, you continue drinking that comforting cup every morning without thinking twice, and each year, your recall, focus, and mental clarity fade just a little faster. On the other, you become aware of the risk, make small changes, and protect your brain's sharpness well into your 70s, 80s, and beyond. Which one will you choose? Before we dive deeper into the 9 most common breakfast drinks that could be putting your memory at risk, I have an important request. If you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another health tip made just for you. If you find this video helpful, type 1 in the comments. If not, type 0, so I know how to make it better for you. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how certain morning drinks can turn from a source of comfort into a threat to your most valuable asset, your mind, and what you can do to protect yourself starting tomorrow morning. After the age of 60, the brain's landscape changes in ways many people underestimate. You might still feel sharp and capable, but beneath the surface, structural shifts are taking place that make your brain far more sensitive to what you consume, especially first thing in the morning. As a neurologist, I often compare it to an aging bridge. The bridge still stands, still carries traffic, but its supports aren't as strong as they once were. Any extra weight or sudden stress has a much bigger impact. One of the most significant changes involves cerebral blood flow. In youth, arteries and tiny capillaries in the brain are elastic and responsive, widening or narrowing as needed to deliver oxygen and nutrients. But over decades, the inner lining of those vessels, called the endothelium, becomes less flexible. Plaque buildup, microtears, and inflammation further reduce their ability to adapt. That means when certain compounds in your breakfast drink constrict these vessels, there's less reserve to maintain healthy blood flow to areas like the hippocampus and frontal lobes, which control memory and decision-making. Another factor is the slowing of neurogenesis, the brain's ability to create new neurons and repair damaged ones. This natural decline accelerates with chronic inflammation, high blood pressure, and unstable blood sugar. Many common breakfast drinks, especially those high in caffeine, added sugars, or artificial additives, trigger precisely these problems. For example, a sweetened coffee or fruit smoothie with hidden syrups can cause a rapid blood sugar surge, followed by a sharp drop. The brain, which relies on a constant glucose supply, experiences these swings as stress, leading to oxidative damage and gradual cognitive decline. I recall one patient, Mr. Patel, a 72-year-old retired accountant. His family brought him in because he had begun losing his train of thought mid-sentence and misplacing everyday items. When we reviewed his habits, nothing stood out, except his morning ritual. For decades, he drank 2 large mugs of sweetened instant coffee, believing it was harmless. Blood tests revealed high fasting glucose and elevated markers of inflammation. We reduced his sugar intake, switched him to a milder, unsweetened brew, and within months, his focus noticeably improved. While we couldn't reverse all the changes, we slowed the decline. The truth is, seniors can no longer rely on the same dietary tolerance they enjoyed at 40 or 50. The same breakfast drink that felt energizing then may now cause subtle, cumulative harm. And because these effects are gradual, many don't notice until the damage is well underway. So, if your morning cup is already capable of altering your brain's blood flow, sugar balance, and repair systems, what about the specific ingredients hiding inside it? The answer becomes even more alarming when we examine the combination of caffeine and sweeteners, a pairing more dangerous than most people realize. Caffeine alone isn't the villain many believe it to be. In moderation, it can actually improve alertness, focus, and even certain aspects of memory. The problem emerges when caffeine is combined with high amounts of sugar, a pairing that's all too common in breakfast drinks, from flavored lattes to bottled iced coffees and even healthy energy drinks. This combination creates a metabolic roller coaster that an aging brain simply can't afford. Here's what happens. Caffeine stimulates the central nervous system, raising heart rate and temporarily increasing blood pressure. At the same time, sugar floods your bloodstream, spiking glucose levels far beyond the gentle range your brain prefers. Initially, you might feel a surge of energy and mental clarity, but this is deceptive. Within hours, your insulin response drives blood sugar back down, often lower than where you started. This sugar crash leaves brain cells starved for fuel, impairing your ability to recall information and maintain focus. For seniors whose glucose regulation is already less efficient, these swings can be sharper and more damaging. There's also a biochemical side effect many don't consider. Repeated spikes in blood sugar trigger chronic inflammation and oxidative stress, especially in the hippocampus. This is the brain's memory center, and it's highly sensitive to metabolic stress. Over time, these sugar and caffeine surges can accelerate the shrinkage of brain volume linked to cognitive decline. I once treated Mrs. Chang, a 69-year-old retired school librarian who prided herself on staying mentally active with crossword puzzles and book clubs. She drank a sweetened cappuccino every morning, a treat she considered harmless. Over 2 years, she began noticing word-finding difficulties and trouble keeping track of conversations in noisy settings. When we tested her cognitive function, subtle deficits appeared. Lab work showed elevated fasting insulin and inflammatory markers. After replacing her cappuccino with a lightly brewed green tea and a small protein-rich breakfast, her mental stamina improved within months. The trap is that caffeine and sugar together feel rewarding. Caffeine boosts dopamine, the feel-good neurotransmitter, while sugar activates the brain's reward pathways. Seniors may come to associate this combo with comfort and happiness, making it harder to break the habit, even as it erodes cognitive resilience. Now, consider this. Many common breakfast drinks also contain dairy, often in the form of milk, cream, or powdered whiteners. For some older adults, these dairy proteins may contribute to brain plaque buildup, further increasing the risk of memory decline. If caffeine and sugar already set the stage for trouble, what happens when we add this next factor into the mix? For decades, dairy has been marketed as a wholesome, brain-boosting part of breakfast, a source of calcium for bones and protein for muscles. But in my work with seniors, I've seen how dairy, especially in certain forms, can pose hidden risks for the brain. The issue isn't simply lactose intolerance, which is common after 60. It's about how specific proteins and fats in milk-based drinks may accelerate processes linked to cognitive decline. One key factor is casein, the primary protein in milk. In susceptible individuals, casein can trigger low-grade inflammation, not just in the digestive tract, but throughout the body, including the brain. This inflammation can aggravate microglial cells, the brain's immune system, causing them to become overactive. Instead of protecting neurons, these cells begin releasing chemicals that damage them, particularly in areas responsible for memory and learning. Then there's the fat profile of many dairy products. Whole milk, cream, and certain processed milk powders are high in saturated fats, which can influence cholesterol levels and promote plaque formation in blood vessels. When these plaques develop in cerebral arteries, blood flow to the brain becomes restricted, depriving memory-related regions of oxygen and nutrients. I recall Mr. Lewis, a 74-year-old retired pilot, who came to me worried about increasingly frequent mental blanks during conversations. His diet was generally balanced, lots of vegetables, lean proteins, and limited sweets, except for his morning ritual, a large latte made with whole milk and a generous scoop of flavored creamer powder. He had no idea that the powdered creamer contained hydrogenated oils and stabilizers, both known to worsen vascular inflammation. We swapped his latte for an almond milk version with no added sugars. Within 6 months, he reported sharper recall and fewer mental lapses. The other overlooked issue is how milk proteins can interact with certain compounds in coffee or tea. For example, adding milk to tea can reduce the bioavailability of catechins, powerful antioxidants that protect brain cells from oxidative stress. By neutralizing these benefits, dairy may tip the balance toward harm, especially if the drink already contains sugar and caffeine. Many seniors think they're doing their brain a favor by choosing a creamy cappuccino or a yogurt-based smoothie instead of a sugary soda. But if you're sensitive to casein or saturated fat, that choice might be quietly feeding the conditions that encourage memory decline. If dairy in your morning cup can work against your brain, what about drinks marketed as healthy because they're sugar-free? The answer is even more concerning because the artificial sweeteners replacing sugar come with their own set of brain risks. For many seniors concerned about blood sugar, switching to sugar-free breakfast drinks seems like the perfect solution. The labels promise 0 sugar and low calories, and the taste is often close enough to the real thing to feel like a guilt-free indulgence. But what most don't realize is that artificial sweeteners, found in diet lattes, sugar-free cappuccinos, and many powdered drink mixes, can quietly disrupt brain health in ways that mimic, and sometimes even accelerate, the damage caused by sugar itself. The brain and gut are deeply connected through what's known as the gut-brain axis. Your gut microbiome, trillions of bacteria living in your digestive tract, plays a major role in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine, as well as regulating inflammation. Artificial sweeteners such as aspartame, sucralose, and saccharin have been shown to alter the balance of these bacteria, reducing populations of beneficial strains while allowing harmful ones to thrive. In seniors, whose microbiomes are already less diverse due to age, these changes can have an amplified effect, leading to increased inflammation and slower communication between brain cells. One of my patients, Mrs. Delgado, a 66-year-old retired nurse, switched from sweetened coffee to a sugar-free iced latte with aspartame, thinking she was protecting her health. Over the next year, she began experiencing frequent headaches, brain fog, and difficulty recalling recent conversations. When we reviewed her diet, her morning drink stood out. We transitioned her to unsweetened herbal tea paired with a small portion of fruit for natural sweetness. Within weeks, her headaches subsided, and her mental clarity improved noticeably. Artificial sweeteners can also interfere with insulin sensitivity, even without containing actual sugar. This means your body may still experience spikes in blood glucose after meals, creating the same kind of oxidative stress and vascular damage we see with high sugar diets. For the brain, which depends on steady glucose for energy, these fluctuations can impair memory formation and reduce focus. The backfire is subtle but dangerous. Instead of preventing harm, sugar-free breakfast drinks may set off a chain reaction, gut imbalance, inflammation, glucose instability, that quietly undermines cognitive health. And because the changes are gradual, many seniors never connect their symptoms to what's in their cup. Now, imagine what happens when a seemingly harmless habit is compounded by years of repetition. That's exactly what we'll see in the story of Mr. Howard, whose slow memory decline traced back to one healthy morning beverage he never thought twice about. Mr. Howard was a 68-year-old retired history professor when his daughter first brought him to my clinic. On the surface, he still seemed sharp. He could recall historical dates, recount war strategies, and even quote literature from memory. But subtle cracks had begun to appear. He misplaced his reading glasses twice a day, forgot the names of students he'd mentored for years, and sometimes repeated the same story within a single conversation. When we sat down to review his lifestyle, nothing obvious jumped out. He didn't smoke, rarely drank alcohol, and walked every morning. His blood pressure was mildly elevated, but controlled with medication. Then I asked about his diet, and his face lit up. "Every morning," he said proudly, "I have my healthy breakfast ritual, a sugar-free cappuccino with skim milk. I've been doing it for 20 years. It turned out that his cappuccino wasn't as harmless as he believed. The powdered mix he used contained hydrogenated oils, artificial sweeteners, and stabilizers. The skim milk he added was ultra-pasteurized and fortified with synthetic vitamins, but also came with proteins that, for some people, can aggravate inflammation. And while sugar-free sounded good, the aspartame in his mix was disrupting his gut bacteria and insulin response, likely contributing to brain fog. We ran cognitive tests and found mild deficits in short-term recall and attention. His fasting insulin was elevated, and inflammatory markers were higher than expected for his age. I explained that while 1 cup might not seem harmful, decades of daily exposure to this chemical and metabolic stress could chip away at brain health, slowly, silently, and irreversibly. Changing habits after 20 years isn't easy, but Mr. Howard was determined. We swapped his powdered cappuccino for freshly brewed green tea with a splash of unsweetened almond milk. Instead of artificial sweeteners, we encouraged small servings of antioxidant-rich berries for natural sweetness. We also advised pairing his drink with a protein-rich breakfast to stabilize blood sugar. 6 months later, his daughter noticed real differences. He misplaced things less often, followed conversations more easily, and even started teaching a community class again without relying so heavily on notes. While we couldn't claim his brain had recovered completely, the progression of his memory decline had clearly slowed, and in some ways, his day-to-day sharpness improved. Stories like Mr. Howard's aren't rare. In fact, his situation is a perfect example of how a seemingly small habit, repeated thousands of times over years, can create a slow drip of damage. And even more concerning, many people consume the same harmful compounds without realizing it because they're not just in cappuccinos or lattes. They show up in other breakfast drinks you'd never suspect. When most people think of risky breakfast drinks, they picture coffee with sugar, sweetened tea, or maybe a latte. But in reality, the compounds that harm senior brain health are hiding in a much broader range of morning beverages, many of them marketed as healthy, energizing, or even brain-boosting. One common example is flavored water, often sold in colorful bottles promising vitamins, electrolytes, or antioxidants. These drinks may contain artificial sweeteners, preservatives, and synthetic flavoring agents. While they may be calorie-free, they can still disrupt the gut microbiome and impair glucose regulation, just like the sweeteners in diet coffees. Seniors often reach for them, thinking they're a healthier alternative to juice or soda, not realizing the long-term impact on brain health. Smoothies are another overlooked culprit. While homemade versions with fresh fruit, vegetables, and unsweetened nut milk can be beneficial, many store-bought or cafe smoothies are packed with high glycemic fruit, concentrates, flavored yogurts, and added sugars. This creates the same spike-crash cycle that starves the brain of stable energy and fuels inflammation in memory-related regions. For seniors, whose brains are less resilient, these repeated sugar surges can accelerate cognitive wear and tear. Then there are meal replacement shakes, popular among older adults looking for convenience or weight control. While some are well-formulated, many contain hydrogenated oils, synthetic vitamins with low bioavailability, and artificial flavors or thickeners. The combination of chemical additives and unstable blood sugar response makes these shakes a hidden threat to long-term memory preservation. I worked with Mrs. Green, a 71-year-old retiree who prided herself on avoiding coffee entirely. Instead, she drank a brain-boosting protein shake every morning. The marketing claimed it was designed for cognitive health, but the ingredient list told another story: sucralose, artificial vanilla flavor, and corn syrup solids, all of which have been linked to metabolic stress and gut imbalance. After switching to a homemade smoothie with unsweetened almond milk, spinach, blueberries, and a clean protein powder, She reported fewer afternoon brain fog episodes and more sustained focus throughout the day. The takeaway is simple but critical. Brain-harming ingredients are not confined to the coffee shop menu. They're lurking in many of the drinks seniors choose when trying to be healthy. And in some cases, the marketing around these products creates a false sense of security, leading people to consume them daily without question. Now, we've talked about sugar, caffeine, dairy, and artificial sweeteners, as well as their hidden sources. But there's another factor many seniors overlook: the way certain drink ingredients affect blood pressure. High blood pressure is one of the most powerful, yet silent, drivers of memory loss. And some breakfast beverages can make that risk skyrocket. High blood pressure is one of the most silent, yet destructive forces behind memory loss in seniors. When pressure in the arteries remains elevated, it places constant strain on the delicate network of vessels feeding the brain. Over time, this damages the endothelial lining, causes microtears, and weakens vessel walls. The result? Reduced blood flow to memory-critical regions like the hippocampus, along with a greater risk of tiny, undetected microstrokes that gradually erode cognitive function. What many seniors don't realize is that certain breakfast drinks can significantly worsen this risk. Caffeine, especially in high doses, can cause temporary spikes in blood pressure by constricting blood vessels and stimulating the release of adrenaline. For someone with already stiffened arteries, even a modest increase can tip the balance toward long-term vascular damage. Combine that with sugary or high-sodium additives, such as flavored creamers, syrups, or powdered mixes, and you create a cocktail of risks: elevated blood pressure, inflammation, and impaired glucose control, all feeding into the same cycle of brain decline. Consider the case of Mr. Thompson, a 70-year-old retired mechanic. He drank 2 large mugs of instant coffee every morning, each mixed with a packet of powdered creamer containing both sugar and sodium-based preservatives. His home blood pressure readings hovered around 150/90, despite medication. He dismissed it as normal for my age. But when memory lapses and occasional dizziness started interfering with his daily life, he sought help. Once we replaced his morning coffee with a lower caffeine green tea and eliminated the sodium-heavy creamer, his blood pressure dropped into a healthier range, and his mental clarity noticeably improved. Another hidden factor: certain healthy vegetable juices and sports drinks contain added sodium to enhance flavor and shelf life. While sodium is essential in small amounts, excess intake can retain water in the bloodstream, raising blood volume and pressure. For seniors, whose kidneys are often less efficient, these effects can last all day. Why does this matter so much for memory? Because the brain is a high-demand organ that requires steady oxygen and nutrient delivery. Any chronic restriction in blood flow means neurons and memory centers are under constant low-grade stress. Over years, this can translate into noticeable recall problems, difficulty concentrating, and slower thinking speed. If you've been feeling mentally foggy or more forgetful, it's worth looking beyond your blood pressure medication and asking, could my morning drink be silently sabotaging my efforts? Fortunately, there are safer, brain-friendly alternatives that not only avoid these pitfalls, but actively support memory and focus. That's what we'll explore next. If your daily breakfast drink is quietly sabotaging your memory, the good news is that you can make changes starting tomorrow morning. Changes that protect your brain without leaving you feeling deprived. The key is to choose beverages that stabilize blood sugar, support healthy blood flow, and reduce inflammation, rather than trigger the opposite. One of my top recommendations for seniors is herbal tea. Varieties like rooibos, chamomile, and hibiscus contain natural antioxidants and are caffeine-free, making them ideal for those sensitive to blood pressure spikes. Hibiscus tea, in particular, has been shown to support healthy blood pressure levels, which in turn protects brain vessels from strain. For those who enjoy a gentle lift in the morning, green tea is an excellent choice. It contains moderate caffeine balanced by an amino acid called L-theanine, which promotes calm focus without the jittery highs and crashes of coffee. The catechins in green tea also protect neurons from oxidative stress, supporting memory function over time. If you prefer something richer, try golden milk, a warm drink made with unsweetened almond or oat milk, turmeric, and a pinch of black pepper to enhance absorption. Turmeric's active compound, curcumin, has potent anti-inflammatory effects in the brain. This can help slow the cellular damage associated with aging and memory loss. For those who miss the flavor of coffee, chicory root coffee or blends with roasted barley can offer a similar taste without the caffeine load. These alternatives also contain prebiotic fibers that nourish healthy gut bacteria, indirectly benefiting brain health. When it comes to smoothies, the safest approach is homemade. Use low glycemic fruits, like berries, pair them with leafy greens such as spinach or kale, and blend with unsweetened plant milk. Adding a tablespoon of chia seeds or flax seeds provides omega-3 fatty acids, which help maintain healthy cell membranes in the brain. I once worked with Ms. Reynolds, a 65-year-old retired art teacher who was reluctant to give up her sweet latte habit. We transitioned her to a morning matcha latte made with unsweetened almond milk and a teaspoon of honey for gentle sweetness. Within weeks, she noticed fewer energy crashes and an easier time recalling details from her painting classes. Over the following months, her afternoon mental slumps became rare. The important thing to remember is that a safer morning drink doesn't have to be bland or boring. It just needs to work with your brain's needs instead of against them. By making this swap, you give your brain a stable environment to function at its best day after day. Now that we've covered the dangers, hidden sources, and safer alternatives, it's time to bring everything together and give you a simple, clear plan to protect your memory for years to come. If there's one message I want you to take away from this, it's that your morning drink is not a small detail. For many seniors, it's a daily ritual, one that can either protect your brain or quietly chip away at it. We've seen how high sugar, caffeine overload, dairy proteins, artificial sweeteners, hidden additives, and even sodium can create the perfect storm for memory decline. These ingredients don't cause immediate collapse. Instead, they work silently over years, reducing blood flow, disrupting glucose balance, and fueling inflammation in the brain. Aging changes how your body responds to what you consume. After 60, your brain's repair systems slow, your blood vessels become less flexible, and your tolerance for metabolic stress drops. What was harmless in your 40s can now carry serious risks. That's why awareness and action matters so much. The good news is that you have the power to shift this daily habit in your favor. Instead of starting your day with something that spikes blood sugar, raises blood pressure, or irritates the gut-brain connection, you can choose drinks that provide steady energy, protect brain vessels, and nourish neurons. Here are 6 brain-safe options to consider. Green tea, gentle caffeine, plus antioxidants for calm focus. Hibiscus tea supports healthy blood pressure and brain circulation. Golden milk, anti-inflammatory turmeric with plant-based milk. Chicory root coffee, coffee-like taste, caffeine-free, gut-friendly. Homemade berry smoothie, low glycemic fruit, greens, healthy fats. Warm lemon water, hydration plus vitamin C for vascular health. To get the most benefit, follow these simple, safe drinking rules. Drink earlier in the day to avoid evening blood pressure spikes or sleep disruption. Pair your drink with protein or healthy fat to stabilize blood sugar. Avoid pre-packaged mixes with long ingredient lists. Watch portion size. 1 cup is often enough. Rotate your choices to avoid overexposure to any one ingredient. I've seen patients turn their mental sharpness around simply by making this one change. It doesn't require expensive supplements or complicated routines, just the willingness to swap one habit for another and to protect your brain as fiercely as you would your eyesight, your mobility, or your independence. Your mind is your most valuable asset. Guard it, nourish it, and give it the environment it needs to thrive for decades to come. If you've been inspired by what you've learned today, take the first step tomorrow morning. Swap that risky drink for something that will help you think clearly, remember deeply, and live fully. If you enjoyed this video, please leave a comment with 1. If not, feel free to comment with 0 point. Your feedback means a lot to us. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss another senior health tip made just for you.